Hey all, Board Game Rants here. We'll find everything solo tabletop gaming and more. And today we're going to go over Roman Roll, designed by the solo variant maestro himself, David Turczi, and Nick Shaw. A little bit about it and what I think on the other side. All right, Roman Roll. What we got here is pen right and then a little bit of a pen left. So over here we just got stuff that you use to set the game up. Here's 3 other types of players you can be. Their base game comes with 4 different boards, and each board is a little asymmetrical. Gives you a few little different starting things. And up here these cards represent buildings you can build, and you got a stack of leisure buildings, army buildings, urban buildings, manufacturing buildings that can come out during your course of play. Part of setup is to pick, 2 manufacturing buildings and pick 2 urban buildings and pick 2 army buildings, and then you get 1 leisure. You can kind of see it up there, leisure, and then the base game only comes with 1 religious building. So the shrine's always available. But these outline what you can build this particular game. You got your little resources, a couple wood there, 3 wood there, etc. That's brick. And then you got your shapes up here. And over here you got these little letters that you'll write when you draw your building in on the board over there. You will put QR so you can know that, oh, that's a quarry, because actually the quarry is the same shape as a woodcutter. And the camp is the same shape as an engineering post. So use little initials there so that you know on the board what it is, and then what its little powers are and what it could possibly score you there at the bottom. So over here is where you're going to be drawing these buildings. And solo, you're going to be starting right here. You can start here in the Forum Romanum and building out from there. And there's of course these squares are where you'll work your shapes. I'm not going to try to do it left-handed. I'm switching up here. So if I wanted to build, I don't know, a woodcutter over there, I would have to kind of do a shape maybe a little bit like this, and 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 like that. There we go. That's the shape of the woodcutter. But you can flip it over, you can have it turn it upside down. You just have to kind of have the blocks in the right pattern. And then there's rules to building out here. Once you build, you place your guy out there. Well, maybe after I wrote WC, and then I put my guy out here, and then from now on there's some rules that I have to build adjacent to my fella, who I can move 1 space for free, or I can pay a fish to keep moving them because buildings, of course, are going to start getting sprawled out here. And you can only build next to your guy. So there's some limitations there with building. In building 2, you've got these colored spots, which represent hills, and you can only build, either entirely on a hill or partly on a hill and partly on one of these white spaces. But you can't draw like on top of 2 hills with the same building. And then you got a wall here that has its rules, and you got a river here that's got its rules, and there's adjacency rules and rules stuff for building, as you might expect. And that's all part of what you need to keep track of as you're building your particular buildings and going after certain. They've got production abilities, and they've got one-time abilities, and if you build like next to your opponent, stuff can happen, or if your opponent builds next to you, adjacent, stuff can happen. So all that. And then down here you've got these, so that's a big part of the game. And then down here you've got these little spots here which represent, I guess, trade or something. And you can conquer cities, or conquer whatever areas, conquer that. And then you're going to attach your roads here by drawing your roads in, and maybe conquer that. You get points for these little tombstone looking things, and you get points for these little ribbons you get to cross off. You might certain things will allow you to produce, like brick here or wood here or fish there. And so this is part of the game too, is connecting your little settlements that you've conquered around Rome. And all that stuff is going to be recorded down here on your board. So on this left side, you've got where you're going to put your resources, wood, brick, shorthand. So this is part of the board here. Actions is the same on all boards. It's just these are, you can take and construct, raise legions, conquer, expand, tax, or trade. And they're all laid out the same. This is where, these are little powers. You can bribe your advisors and get these little powers that each one will allow for you, kind of change the rules of the game a little bit for you, give you some advantages, possibly even get you extra points at the end of the game. Over here is when you're done with your game. This is all the same too, this little section, well, except for that name, but you score. You can just use these to help you score, find out what your total is. At the end of the game, whoever has the highest points wins. And down here is where you're going to be recording certain things. As you take these actions, you'll be filling in bars on this on these little tables and kind of going up from 1 up. Those are going to count as victory points. And also too, when you hit certain milestones, you're going to be able to, the first person to hit a milestone gets to get extra points. And there's going to be a 7 extra point, a 5 extra point, and a 4, and there's a 2 at the bottom. And that's also kind of an end game trigger too, when all those have gotten collected by either you or your AI opponent, which I'm about to go over here in a second. But so you'll fill these in as you do certain actions up here. You'll get to fill these in. And over here as well, these little senators are kind of a fill these in, and you get little bonus actions. So that is the gist of the game. But then you're also going to have an AI opponent. That's going to be run over here. Pretty easy. Oh, and over here too, I didn't go over these. So this is part of the shrine, the one religious building you can build, will allow you to get a God's favor, which just give you little one-time boosts. And over here, part of the AI setup gets one random one of those. There's a little stack of God's favors there that you randomly put out 3 to start. So the AI gets a random one, has its deck that's going to tell you what actions it's going to do, and has its cards that are going to be, each round, basically take 2 main actions. So those actions are, getting to the nitty-gritty of the game, got these big old bulky dice you're going to roll. There's sort of a dice drafting thing that starts each round. And then once you've picked 2, and maybe the AI has picked 2, this is what we'll use to take our actions. And these actions give you, the resources, and they can activate certain actions associated with them. That's what these die are all about, is getting your resources here. And when you have the certain symbols, you can take the certain actions. So you'll be using the die to determine what you can do. And then over here, the AI is much more simplified, just basically steals dice. So you just don't get total pick of the litter there. And then it'll be flipping over cards here to activate its turns, which are all going to be very simplified. Very simplified. It's not actually, it will draw stuff out there. It's going to call it rubble instead of buildings, which will get in your way of you trying to build buildings. And it also is, part of what you can do. Sometimes it'll activate your buildings when he builds next to you. But ultimately, it's just trying to block off certain buildings too. Like it blocks off the shrine, so you can't just go and start building a shrine. Each time you build a building, you kind of put your worker on there, and it makes it so your opponent can't really build there. There's ways around that, but that's the general gist. And yeah, each round you get 2 actions. So that's why there's 2 cards there I'll take my turn the first round. This is the first turn marker, and that's going to alternate back and forth between you and the AI each round. And after you've rolled your dice and picked your dice, and I would take an action, I'd get rid of that die, the AI would take its action, and then that's done. I'd go back, I'd take my action, and then AI would take their action, and then you're done for the round. And the game ends when either you get through this whole thing, or one round after all those points have been taken. AI has a simplified way of scoring itself. You score basically the way you would normally. You see if you won or not. And that is a little overview of Roam and Roll. So I don't have a lot of experience with roll and writes in general. I have tried a few. I have not really enjoyed them because they're not heavy enough for my liking, for my taste, but they're not supposed to be. I mean, that's roll and writes. I don't think they're designed to be, heavy in the sense. Maybe the heaviest I've played is Forest of Adramon, I think I'm saying that right, the Hexplore game, which is sort of, it's a roll and write, I guess. I don't know if you'd really categorize it as such, but it has those elements to it. And that's certainly a heavy-ish game that's toned to my liking because it's the fantasy thing. But I've also tried, Castles of Burgundy, the dice game. I've tried Welcome To, which I thought was pretty clever. Especially the different, there's a second solo variant you can play that's not the included one, but a different one that I liked a lot better. Anyway, so I have a limited experience in roll and writes. I tend to stay away from them for those reasons. And well, the other biggest reason I'll get to, probably the biggest reason, it's on me, this reason, but Roam and Roll. So let's just go over the basics, shall we? The thing that I found the most incredible about this game is that the setup and teardown time of a fairly, I wouldn't call it heavy, it's medium weight, I guess. It's certainly the heaviest roll and write game, kind of pure in the sense of how quick it sets up. I think that's a big thing about roll and writes, or just how fast they set up. And this one sets up, well, I don't remember how quickly. I know Forest of Adramon takes a while to set up, but the other roll and writes, this Roam and Roll, I digress. Let's focus here. Like 3 minutes. I literally can take it out of the box and set it up and be ready to play in 3 to 4 minutes. And you put away about the same speed. You have to kind of clean off your board and stuff before you can. But that's amazing. There's something to be said about a game that plays that heavy, medium weight, that sets up so wickedly fast. That's a niche that very few games fit. In fact, I can't think of one. So that was impressive. And it takes up a very small amount of table space, really. You can get this all in a little 2x2 space, easily. The length of play, it's a good solid hour. It could be, I feel like I played it a little longer. It seems absurd. It almost like while I'm playing it, it's just like, man, this game, there's only so many rounds you can play, and it feels like it's going to go pretty fast. And like certain rounds do go really fast, but then there's some where it just, according to the dice roll and according to some factors, you got to sit there and think a little bit. I even experimented and tried just playing. I played this game about 7 times. I tried to play blazingly fast and just, roll the dice and just sort of go with my gut feeling. And I got stomped. And so that was, I found that almost relieving in a sense. Because if I had just been able to just kind of wing it and win in, half hour, 45 minutes, I don't know, I would have lost respect for the game somehow in a weird way, but did not happen. So I found that cool. You can get stuck, and you've got a plan, and that's all part of just playing a heavier game, I suppose. So length of play, yeah, good hour, I would say. From setup, play, and tear down, an hour, which is good. That's a nice time frame for all of that to happen. The components, the value for the components, I felt was a little off. There's just not a lot there, and to pay what I paid for, or retail, I feel like is a little on the spendy side. So, if you're looking to get this game, I would wait for a sale. None of the components are bad or anything. It's just there's just not much to it, and I just would expect something that to be less than it was retail. Another thing is I'm just not enamored with the look of this game or roller rights in general, and it has a lot to do with my own ability, I guess. It's just I'm such a components guy, and I like the tactile, the physicality of games, and especially as you're playing and when you're done, you've got this thing to look at that's kind of, you know, maybe magnificent looking. I'm kind of a sucker for that. And while I'm playing this game, and at the end, it just looks a mess. And I'm not a fan of just dry erase in general. I can't, you know, you got to kind of write on stuff in lift. You can't have your hand resting, or you might wipe off some important information. So you got to kind of write with in this almost unnatural way, and it just looks sloppy. I'm a sloppy writer, and I can't draw a friggin' straight line for the life of me. And so by the time I've got this game done and played, and whether I've won or lost or something, it just looks, you know, unappealing. So, but that's, you know, I could just be me, and the fact that I've got terrible penmanship. Thematically, I don't know. There's no there's sort of a theme there, but it's nothing. There's no real nothing to latch on to there. It's got kind of a, I don't know, it reminded me of, you know, Trajan, or, you know, sort of that thing going on with Rome, and I feel like I've played this theme before, and it had about as much theme, just like maybe about as much as Trajan did as well. That Stefan Feld game, it's sort of there, but it's not. I don't know. It's nothing you're gonna be excited about. I think it could have been a lot of other different themes, but just fine. The rulebook was okay. I found I had to look up certain things that I was surprised that I had to look up, like the final scoring. Just, you know, some things there, like areas versus, you know, versus like single squares, or, you know, what you score, or there was just a few little nuances where there's a few, yeah, again, the rule book where the solo rules were, you know, concerned, just man, that's the only thing I can think of that pops in my head. But there was like 2 or 3 things that just I found odd that it wasn't spelled out a little bit better in the rule book. And I had to go to the FAQ, and I mean, and then when you do, and then you're kind of set. I mean, it's not a complicated game, but there's just a lot to think about with the different pieces. And you know, that's certainly one of the things that I found lacking in the game, I guess. You know, especially too for what I paid for. It was just, there's certain buildings that you put out. You know, you got your manufactured buildings, your urban buildings, and your religious building. There's like one religious building. That's it. I mean, you just got one to work with, and you always have one in your game. And then you got, you know, 2 of everything else and 1 leisure, I think. And but there was like a handful, you know, 3 to 4 to 5 cards that you pick the 2 out of, or the 1 out of, with leisure. And I mean, you see them all so quick. In the 7 games that I played, it's just, I saw them all, and it just, I just feel like there could have been more. There should have been more in the base game. So I don't know, whatever. I would have liked to seen more. But the mechanics were cool. They were just, you know, it was a little like Trajan as well, the Stefan Feld game, where like, there was certain directions you would go to score points, and because you've got this sort of these 4 cards that there's a race for that score 7, 5, 4, and 2, I think, and you're racing against the AI, and the AI is, you know, pretty. You can just see if it's going to get it or not. You know, this is a definite countdown, and you want to get that 7. So you've got to focus in certain areas, kind of at a time, and while you're focusing on an area, you can sort of be building up to score in another area. And I found that pretty clean and cool how it was done. And it's just, yeah, it's as I kept playing it, the first 2 or 3 times, I feel like it was like, oh, that's kind of it, but there's something to it, that there's like more than you think there as you're playing it, and that's where I guess when I tried to play really fast, that's where I realized, wow, you really, you know, there's more to this than it looks like. And so, yeah, there's just a depth there that's almost imperceptible until you try to play it fast and realize, wow, that doesn't work. And so, yeah, wherever I was going with that. But the mechanics of the game I felt were quite sound and put together in a nice coherent fashion and gave you some interesting choices. So good strategy overall, and you know, yeah, definitely a good strategy game. There's some luck to it, of course, with the dice rolling, the dice drafting, but there's ways to mitigate it. You know, oftentimes the board that you're playing has a power that allows you to change the die to anything you want, or one of the God's favors that allows you to do something like that. So not a lot of luck involved there, even though you're, you know, rolling dice each round. The solo design was awesome. You know, it's David Turczi. It just what can I say? The guy is just genius. You know, I'm not you know, I've mentioned before, I haven't been a big fan of the games that he's like personally designed and done solo variants for. More a fan of just the solo variant designs he does for other games. But this was spot on. I thought it was a great, you know, design, the way it was done. It was clean, it was easy to learn and pick up, and it plays really fast. And it comes with difficulty levels. I didn't mess with those, but they're available. But I found it on normal. You know, I think I won most of the time. Think so. But the games were always really close. Especially when I found out, you know, I wasn't scoring right the first time. So I think the games maybe the first time were a little closer than I thought. But yeah, the scoring was a little off the first one or two games there. So, but the replayability is lacking for me just because of the lack of cards. I feel like there should have been some good, healthy stacks of buildings to choose from, other than there were. And so the game kind of quickly got to feeling a little samey for me. But hey, you know, that's what expansions are for, I guess, right? Overall, is this game going to stay in my collection? I don't know. I possibly. I'm looking forward to the Barbarians. Just kickstarted. And I know there's some other little things there. I guess it depends on the cost again for me, because I just felt like in general the game was overpriced. And so if it was cheaper, I might, you know, certainly hold on to it, because the box itself just doesn't take up a lot of space. And again, the coolest thing about this game is just how fast it sets up. I mean, that is appealing. And I wish more games could figure it out like this one did. But there you have it. There's my thoughts on Roman Roll. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments down below. But until next time, thank you so much for watching. I'm boardgamerants, and I'm out!